Hi everybody, it's Beth. I wanted to come in today. I have been, I really been, digging into Dr. Daens' book, Transforming Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, and trying to make a schedule and come up with kind of a strategy of how I want to impart the readings in this book. But today, I just had to address something that you can see I'm experiencing and I know you are experiencing. And it's something that in my EDS journey, I started feeling really bad, really poorly during my third trimester of pregnancy. I was 33 years old, so that was 18 years ago. And I have had this extreme fatigue for 18 years, and this is the part that I hide the most. It's extremely disabling, but, it's not really acceptable in our society to be just disabled by fatigue. So we all get up, we do our hair, we put our makeup on, we put our best face forward, and we fake it, right? So I just wanted to read this a little bit from chapter 10, which is titled Intense and Disabling Fatigue. Because I know we all are here, and I know that we all have varying degrees of this fatigue, but it's real, and it's here. There are good reasons why we feel this way. The reasons are outlined in chapter 10. I'm just going to do a few readings from this chapter because today, this is the real me. On a lot of days, I am just spent. I have nothing left to give in my tank. I have no fuel in my tank. My battery is worn down. So, first, just acknowledgement, right? Validation and acknowledgement. Some patients may present to their family physicians or to the emergency department with intense fatigue. They feel empty of energy, a term often used by patients, and they feel without strength. Fatigue is, along with pain, the most disabling symptom of EDS. It is a chronic fatigue that is inextricably linked to chronic fatigue syndrome. All patients diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome should be tested for EDS. I don't really want to go into a discussion about the differences between chronic fatigue syndrome and EDS. I think what the good doctor is saying here is that the fatigue in EDS is as debilitating as it is in the diagnosis of chronic fatigue syndrome. I've never really acknowledged that before. I just, I knew that I couldn't get out of bed some days. I knew that I have to spend a lot of time resting. I knew that I look like I am just exhausted. But I never really, sought out treatment for fatigue. So Dr. Daens goes through reasons why this fatigue happens. It's multifactorial and it's complex. And so here are a couple of it's interesting because this is the section on intense and disabling fatigue is where he brings up dystonia. So a lot of the points about why this fatigue happens are linked to dysautonomia and all of the functions of the autonomic nervous system. So the low blood volume, all of the receptors that make up the autonomic nervous system, and there are a lot, and these are functions of blood pressure, blood pooling, hydration, baroreceptors, chemical receptors, all of these parts of the autonomic nervous system are thrown off and dysregulated. And so our body trying to maintain homeostasis and not being able to causes the brain to have to really, really, really work hard, and it can't keep up. So he goes through all of the parts of the autonomic nervous system, the baroreceptors, the voloreceptors, the chemical receptors, the central ischemic response in the brain, cerebral ischemia, the adrenal medulla. I mean, the autonomic nervous system is really complex. And so let us remember the properties of the connective tissue in which the various receptors and sensors are bathed. These alterations in the connective tissue would cause these structures to misperceive variations in circulating blood volume and blood pressure. The consequence there are erroneous afferent influxes sent to the central nervous system and dysautonomia. The brain is functional. The sensors and receptors are of good quality. That's why you could, get DAT scans. They could test your autonomic system, the receptors. Everything looks fine. The receptors are of good quality, but the brain responds to what is sent to it as a message. It responds either late or out of tune, as we commonly say. So when we go and have an examination, especially by a neurologist, they may look at you and you look perfectly normal. I went to the neurologist. I've been with the same neurologist for over, 11, 12 years. And my neurological exams would be really pretty normal, even though I did have intense dystonia that was running all the way down the right side of my body. You just couldn't see it. My muscles were contracted inside and causing me to have a in-toeing where my foot was turned in. My hips were, my whole body was kind of jacked up. But when I did a neurological exam, everything looked pretty normal. And I'd go through MRIs, normal. Scans of my body, normal. Blood work, normal. And my signals are not normal. And the fatigue is often aggravated by EDS and mast cell activation syndrome, which there's a dedicated chapter in this book. But let's get into this just a little bit. I'm sorry, this is getting long. There's an alteration in the performance of the Krebs cycle in the mitochondria, which is the little energy factories of our cells, which is used to form energy from oxygen. However, the structures that consume the most oxygen and therefore energy are the brain and the muscles. Patients with EDS often have involuntary muscle contractions, such as spasms, dystonia, and almost permanent muscle contractions to correct posture and proprioceptive inputs. This activity requires increased oxygen consumption by the muscles at the level of the mitochondria to produce energy. As muscles consume more energy on one hand and dysautonomia reduces cerebral oxygen supply on the other, the availability of oxygen for brain function will further decrease, thus aggravating patient fatigue. Reducing inappropriate or even parasitic muscle contractions will therefore improve the oxygen available to the brain. I did experience that when I went on carbidopa, levodopa, and started treating my dystonia and started treating my dysautonomia. I felt like my fatigue disappeared. I used to be able to get about 3 hours out of my day and be just completely in bed for the rest of the time. Now I'm able to be up all day and, half of the night. But it doesn't mean that I'm not still exhausted. So I know you're tired. And I know it's not just being tired, you're exhausted. And it's because your brain and your muscles and your autonomic nervous system require a lot of oxygen and require a lot of rest. So rest when you need to rest. Move when you can, but rest. There's lots of stuff in here. I just wanted to talk about fatigue today and acknowledge it and validate it, that it's real and it's huge, and we're doing the best we can. Drink lots of water. Take care of your autonomic nervous system as much as you can today. Rest.